on the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. I'm Emily Lux, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our topic tonight is climate change and what you can do to address the issue. And we have three special guests here, all who are very passionate about this issue to share their expertise. And since we have three guests, I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves individually. Go ahead.
I'm Carolina Sears. I am from Sunrise Movement, Climate Nashville, and March for Science and Climate.
I'm Eli Motycka. I'm also involved with Sunrise Movement here in Nashville.
I'm Haviland Whiting, and I'm a senior at the Harpeth Hall School. I'm currently serving as the United States Youth Poet Laureate Ambassador.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much all for being here. Of course, this is a conversation over the next hour. We want to hear from you guys as well. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, we've got the phone number on the bottom of your screen. Please give us a call, ask questions. We want to get you involved in this discussion as well. And I want to start with the Sunrise Movement group with you guys. I was introduced to this group when you guys had your sit-in about a week ago in Mayor Cooper's office. Tell me a little bit about that and what message you were hoping to spread by doing that.
Yeah, Sunrise is specifically about elevating the voices of young people who are facing this crisis in a way that we are talking about our futures instead of talking about those of our children or grandchildren or polar bears even, which is where the conversation has been around the climate crisis in the past. So Sunrise really represents, at least for me, the shift in talking about the humanitarian way, the way this is a humanitarian crisis, the way this is also a crisis that intersects with crises of racial justice, economic justice, and speaking from a voice of moral clarity as young people who really are looking at the science and looking at the next 10 or 20 years and realizing that we are the ones who are going to be facing this crisis. And we need to step up and start using our voices to explain how we feel in this moment and what steps we think must be taken in order to address things at the scale of the problem.
And why do you think it's so important to get specifically young people involved in this cause?
It is their future, and I think there are a lot of younger people, I can't speak for myself as I'm 33, but there are lots of young people that I've interacted with that say that they're worried about their future. They, like, the idea of 2040 scares them, and there are even people out there who are not even wanting to have children because they don't see that there's a livable future if we continue the way that we are right now. So it's very, very important for them because it's their future.
And explain your involvement as well, kind of what you've done. You said you've done some work with this group, but you're involved in other levels as well.
Yes, my mission is to bring sustainability to my immediate communities, so my school, my own household, the household of people around me, because I truly feel that by starting small and by starting with the individual at the individual level, we can make really long-lasting impact. And for me, it's very important to be involved globally and to see how these issues intersect and actually how climate change predominantly affects already at-risk people in the world, and how I have to take that into consideration when I go through my daily life. Because for me, drinking water out of a plastic bottle and throwing it away might not immediately affect me, but there are people who are directly suffering from that action, and ecosystems that are also collapsing.
And I think a lot of times when we hear about climate change, it just seems like such a big, scary issue, and it's like, okay, where do we start? You know, are there little things that we all can do that can make an immediate difference? Or what are your thoughts on that? Where is a good place to start if people hear this and they're concerned?
Get locally engaged, register to vote, pay attention to your city council and your mayor and what kind of policies that they are passing through through their government, because as she was saying, you know, if starting small and with sustainable policy, it's important.
Yeah, I think we also want to think about how we can make those day-to-day choices scalable so that more people aren't facing the kind of boundaries that maybe present themselves with at risk economically, or like everyone can't afford a Tesla, and so maybe Teslas or electric vehicles, even right now as they stand right now, are not going to be the solution to the climate crisis. So we need to think locally and in our communities, and at the same time think about how we can make this something that can really be scaled and incorporated into more people's lives in more places and across the country. And a lot of that comes down to who is making political choices, and are they making political choices with the climate crisis in mind.
And you mentioned like water bottles. I mean, there are some small things, right? We can consume less plastic. We can do all little things kind of in our everyday life that can make a difference.
Right. Because the way that we are currently living and existing on this planet is not sustainable. And so something has to give. And in order to assure that there will be like a livable future, these things will have to give.
And you guys specifically with Sunrise Movement, I know you've put kind of some demands out there for presidential candidates, Congress, city, state leaders, kind of like on all levels. What's the main message you want to get out, as you said, to legislators? Because they will play a huge role in this as well.
We need to shift the conversation towards actually recognizing what we're facing here, and that means fully grappling with the data that's coming out of the world's global scientific consensus, like the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And we need to be looking at this problem in its entirety and be thinking about what it will actually take to address it in its entirety. So we like to say that winning slowly is with this crisis, it's losing in the long term. So how do we do these things at the scale of the crisis we're facing?
Every policy, everything that we do as a government or as a society needs to be looked through the lens of climate change, because it affects everything. So we're thinking large-scale solutions that are very quick, a system change, or change a way that we view things and how we do things in our country and around the world.
And we've also talked a lot about like the Green New Deal. A lot of people don't really know what all that encompasses. How would you just kind of summarize how that could potentially play a role in this?
Right now, the Green New Deal is really the only climate solution that is at the legislative level anywhere that's at the scale of what we're actually facing, that's actually talking with what the numbers are and what the time frame is, and trying to begin a conversation around how we can shift the different carbon-based lifestyle choices that are the norm right now, how we can shift those and how we can change those quickly enough and thoroughly enough to actually avoid the most catastrophic effects of the climate crisis.
And the time is now, right? I mean, why do you think there's so much immediacy to get everyone working on this right now?
Well, scientists say we only have 11 years until we can, until there's irreversible damage to our ecosystems and to our environment. So 11 years is not a long time, especially with how slow our government is working right now. So yes, it's now.
And what would you say to get people involved in this as well?
A lot of arguments I've seen on the internet, as being someone who's really active on social media, is that in year 2000, we were saying that in 5 years the world's going to end due to global warming, or in 1970 people were saying in 20 years the world's going to end. So isn't this just like a bunch of things that scientists are making up and propaganda? My response to that, and to really address the immediacy of this issue, is whether someone wants to believe that or not, the truth is, and the data shows, and the news shows, that right now people are dying due to natural disasters that would not be occurring if it was not for climate change. I would also urge people to familiarize themselves with some of the facts. You don't have to be like a climate change scientist. I for sure am not. I'm just a high school student. But if you just read up a little bit on the global temperature just rising by 2 degrees Celsius versus 1 degree Celsius, and what that means, and how just 1 degree can change everything for everyone, I think that will really urge people to make the right decision and be on the right side of history.
And there are still a lot of doubters out there. Do you hear from people a lot who say this isn't real, this timeline is accelerated, we're fine? How would you respond to people who say that? Sometimes
we hear from people, but it's becoming less and less, and it's even less of a mainstream public discourse than when I was in high school about 6 years ago in Nashville. And that, I think, shows that there is data and there is truth, and we have incredible scientific consensus globally. We have other countries where their mainstream conversations around the climate crisis are not about weather, it's about what we're going to do to address it. And I think that's the trend. So maybe we honestly don't really even encounter that many people who are outright climate deniers, I think, and I think that shows that we are moving towards actually recognizing the scientific truth and the data, because that's ultimately where the conversation must be if we're going to address the crisis.
Especially after the summer we've had, and starting to see more and more people and locally recognize that climate change is real.
Yeah, and especially here locally. I mean, are you seeing just changes here in the mentality and actions people are taking here, just even in Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, because of this, that they're kind of coming around on this issue?
I guess more people have reusable water bottles, like that's, but as far as the actual at-scale structural changes that need to be made, most of those decisions must come from things like declaring a state of climate emergency on behalf of Nashville and Davidson County, or our congressional representative Jim Cooper wanting to step into the room and lead on something like the only climate solution that we have, the HR 109, the Representative Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal legislation. So those changes have not happened. We do not have any leaders who have really stepped up and looked at the facts and decided to talk really critically and vocally and publicly about what we're facing. That has not happened yet, but I guess smaller personal decisions, like Haviland mentioned,
can make a difference. I mean, we've got to start somewhere, right? I guess that's kind of the whole thinking, that we all can play a role in this, as you were saying. Okay. I do think we have a caller here. Let me take this. You are live on Open Line. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. What's your comment or question?
You know, I am all for using less plastic. I agree with that statement, but if you really study history, did you know that the world, the Earth, was much, much warmer during the age of dinosaurs? And the warmer it is has increased the growing seasons for millions of people in this world. So a warmer climate is not bad. And also, I haven't heard any word on mining lithium. If you do studies on mining lithium, it is horrific. It's done in third world countries. It's the most polluting thing. That's what's creating these electric cars, is lithium batteries. And it's just, you'd be amazed at the people that have no knowledge of this. Not to mention that, but the coal factories that are burning today, they are scrubbed, and the stuff that comes out is almost as clean as pure air. Just like the cars and the diesel trucks that run down the road, they are super clean. Our air in the United States is cleaner. They need to be addressing India and China. And as far as the Green New Deal, that's going to cost $15 trillion. They want to eliminate cows eating meat, airplanes, cars. I mean, it's nonsense. It is absolutely nonsense. 11 years is going to be irreversible. I think I heard Al Gore say that, 40 years ago. It's ridiculous. We all need to slow down and realize that the polluters aren't coming from the United States. It's coming from India and China. And the reason why they're polluting so much is because they don't have the clean coal plants like we do here, and they don't have clean emission cars and trucks like that we do here. So it's a hoax. It's a complete hoax.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody needs to slow down, but I think you do need to reduce plastic. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for calling in. Yeah,
I'm a little confused whether the caller was saying that the climate warming was a good thing, or that it was happening, or that it wasn't happening, or where that we need to I was just a little confused because it kind of seemed all over the place, and like the repetition of several Fox News talking points that aren't actually a cohesive argument against what we're talking about.
And the Green New Deal does not banning cows. It's a, what is it, like 3-page resolution that's just talking about how we need to prioritize frontline communities, people of color communities, people that are affected by this the most, and how we need to switch to renewable energies. There is nothing in the language that says that we're banning cows, or we're banning cars, or we're banning anything. It's just saying we need to make a just transition into a more sustainable future quickly.
Did you want to comment on anything, or let that one go? Or you do want to comment? Okay. Go ahead.
So to his first point, yes, I've taken history class. I've actually taken many history classes. And, you know, in studying the Paleological era versus now, our ecosystem is entirely different. The needs of human beings now completely differ from the needs of human beings which actually didn't exist when dinosaurs existed. So the temperatures that dinosaurs could sustain are very different from what the human body can sustain. Additionally, India and China are great polluters, and that is something that does need to be addressed. But a lot of that does have to do with, in these smaller Indian cities, the cycles of colonialism that left the cities poor, and now their only means of, their only economy has to do with serving Western nations through mining, through exploitation of natural resources, and through polluting their own atmospheres, thereby killing themselves to sustain Western capitalism. So I think before we start pointing fingers, it's important to look at the roots of the issue and to examine how intersectional it is. Now I'm really glad that you're also all for cutting out plastic, because that's very important. Like Carolina said, the Green New Deal does not say we're going to ban cows or ban eating meat, just that we're going to have a cleaner economy when it comes to agriculture that's more beneficial to everybody on Earth as opposed to just Western countries. And that can also help speed up the building of infrastructure in these developing nations so that they're not such big polluters.
Okay, we do have a few more calls here. I want to take another one here. You are live on Open Line. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
Here, this is my question. Why can't the people, the leadership in the climate change movement, lead by example? I'm sick and tired of people telling me I can't drive an SUV when the leadership of the climate change movement, you take anybody like Bobby Kennedy Jr., John Kerry, others, they fly around in private jets and they don't lead by example. I don't get it.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I think a lot of this is just so hypocritical, really.
Well, thank you for calling. We appreciate it. I guess it is important to lead by example.
It is.
Which you guys are obviously doing by taking the actions that you have.
We're trying, but I don't think, I mean, I know certainly I don't live a zero carbon life. And in fact, it is incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to live in the modern world and claim a zero carbon life. It's also incredibly expensive to do that. And so to focus the conversations on these day-to-day decisions that are expensive, only available to some people, and do require major lifestyle changes, and to then use that to discredit the actual substance of the conversation, I think is a fallacious argument. It just doesn't, logically doesn't make sense.
And we're not asking everyone to live perfect, sustainable lives. We're asking people to, make some changes, but you're allowed to make mistakes,
We're learning as we go.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open Line right after this. Stay with us.